Okay, folks, so here we are. This is Unlocking the Fife Property Market's Potential, Unveiling the Saleability Secrets. Okay, so here we are. I get asked it all the time as a Fife estate agent, how I've actually witnessed firsthand how the Fife property market operates and the various factors that influence actual property sales overall. Once you can predict these sort of things, you know you've got it sussed in terms of the property market. No surprise there then that I'm actually a property investor and I have been for 30 years. And I know where the property market's going to be potentially in the next 10 to 20 years as well. But we'll hold off just now. And this is one of the key factors that tells me this. This is unveiling the saleability secrets. So what do I mean by that? Well, one intriguing aspect is the difference in saleability across all the actual price ranges. In this show, we're actually going to delve into the dynamics of the selling properties in relation to their price ranges and also explore the factors contributing to various and varying sale rates themselves. So Fife properties in particular, and also properties in the UK, are often categorised into distinct price ranges, such as entry-level, mid-range, and upper quartile luxury. Each segment attracts different buyers with varying purchasing power, preferences, and also investment goals. These factors actually play a crucial role in determining the saleability of the properties within each price range themselves. So let's delve deep down into what each price range actually means. Feel free to ask any questions as well. More than happy to answer them when I can. But just bear with me. Let's talk about entry-level properties and the quick turnaround. For example, let's look at the Fife market because that's the market I'm in. Well, quick turnaround tends to be in the Fife market overall on average up to £145,000 for properties. Now, people from further afield that are on here will go, really? That's almost an apartment. But in Fife, it's very, very affordable. It can be a quick turnaround property. It can be an entry-level property itself. So entry-level properties, let's define them, are typically affordable homes suitable for first-time buyers and buy-to-let investors. They tend to have a relatively high saleability rate overall, and the demand for these properties are often robust, driven by increasing population, rising interest in home ownership, and government incentives for first-time buyers. No surprise there, the first-time buyers, the stamp duty threshold exemption is up to 145,000. There's a surprise. But this is the key statistic we've actually realised in this market. It's actually happening right here at that price point, up to 145,000. Moreover, these entry-level properties usually attract Fife buy-to-let landlords and investors, as they often tend to offer yields and returns, leading which actually will lead to a quicker sale process. So when I talk about the mid-range properties, that's normally a balanced market. Now, in Fife in particular, it's between 145,000 up to £300,000. So what are mid-range properties? Well, they occupy the middle ground, appealing to a broader range of buyers with more financial flexibility. Market conditions, location, and property features generally influence the saleability of these properties overall. In a balanced market, where demand and supply are relatively equal, mid-range properties tend to sell at a moderate pace. Factors such as the property condition, the amenities, the proximities to the schools, the transportation, and various restaurants and cafes and bistros all play a vital role in attracting the potential buyers. Now let's look at the upper quartile, which is the luxury properties. They normally take a lot longer to sell. Now, in Fife, for example, the upper quartile is £300,000 and upwards. They're top-end luxury properties in Fife, believe it or not. For people outside the area, they won't believe this, because typical example is a two-bedroom ex-bank fully renovated conversion, a two-bedroom apartment in Merchant City in Glasgow is around about £450,000. Two-bedroom apartment, £450,000 in Glasgow. Upper quartile luxury property in Fife, £300,000 plus. I could work anywhere else in the country or anywhere else in the world for that matter, because we've now all been taught to work remotely and how that would work. Why would I want to live in the city anymore and pay a huge extortionate cost and possibly have less of a quality of life? In Fife, you're within 20 minutes of a beach in the centre of Fife. So it's easy access to the beaches, the harbours, the open water swimming, all the amenities you could ever want, and it's easy to get out of via the train, which can take you on to Edinburgh, Dundee and further afield. Welcome to God's country. So the upper quartile of the luxury properties in Fife, the top end of Fife luxury properties, characterised by their exclusivity, their unique features and high-end price tags, and the top 25% wise, hence the phrase upper quartile. They often require a longer time to sell than other price ranges. The pool of prospective purchasers, prospective buyers for luxury properties is smaller. Clearly, obviously, you've got, well, typical example, some people don't understand the marketing triangle. So marketing triangle, as price is at the bottom, the audience across here tends to be a lot more in terms of the audience itself. And as price continues to go up to the top up here, the audience automatically gets smaller as a natural result. And that's a typical example of what it would be. So these are pool of prospective buyers where luxury properties is smaller and requiring individuals with significant financial resources to buy. They often dual income families as well, possibly a wee bit more aspirational professionals, because they need the purchasing power in order to afford, if it is a mortgage they're needing, to go in alongside what they've got just now in order to get that property. And with base rates a wee bit higher than before and mortgage rates a wee bit higher than before, it's now becoming less affordable to be able to buy up at this price point. So the selling process involves careful marketing strategies for these types of properties, targeted advertising and connections with affluent buyers overall. So no surprise, the biggest market we attract into the Fife Properties website is London, with over 8,000 people every single month visiting our website. The next biggest audience that we attract into the Fife area on Fife Properties website is Edinburgh, with over 4,000 people every single month coming onto our website from over the Edinburgh area. And then Glasgow and Perth and Dundee, and then the locality itself via Rightmove Prime Location and Zoopla. This is how we capture this audience. So it's not necessarily people on your doorstep will buy, it will people realising the opportunities available, the lifestyle they can have, and it's far superior to what they would get where they are right now, and at a more affordable price. Patience is critical and crucial when dealing with luxury properties, as it may take months to find the right buyer who appreciates the property exceptional qualities and is willing to meet the actual asking price itself. So let's look at the saleability of the Fife Properties price bands, because I actually broke this all down. Now, unfortunately for the people on Instagram, unfortunately for the people on TikTok, either side of me here on cameras, you won't see this graph because it's unique and you can't show graphs in live broadcasts. Well, you can show graphs in live broadcasts like this, but you won't see much and it won't explain much. So I need to show it on the screen here. So let's just show that here. So here we are, there's the Fife property market itself overall, and I'll try and explain that. So up to, this is the Fife property market of the properties that have come to market since the 1st of January. So I've analysed everything from the 1st of January right up to now. This is the percentage of properties that have sold, subject to concluded missives, by price range, as opposed to what's come on. Okay, So up to the 100,000 mark, 96.5% of the properties have actually sold that have come on since the 1st of January this year. That tells you straight away there's a real buoyant market for properties up to the 100,000 price point. Everything from 100,000 to 150,000, 99% of these properties have actually sold by now, subject to concluded missives. So again, a really buoyant market. From 150 to 200,000, 94% have actually sold that have gone to market so far. From 200,000 to 250,000, 84% have sold. From 250 to 300,000, 75% have sold since coming on the market since the 1st of January. Now you can see how that's declining. So 97%, 99%, 94%, 84%, 75%. No surprise then when it goes from 300,000 to 350,000 price band since the start of the year, and 66 or 67% of these properties in total have actually sold so far. Meaning there's still another 33% of these properties still on the market since the beginning of the year, and they're still to sell, or in between that period of time are still on now. 350,000 to 400,000, there's 61% sold since then. 400,000 to 500,000, 73% sold. Actually quite surprising that jumps up, but it's because there's less of a sample, because there's less properties in the Fife area up at these sort of price points. It tends to be some of them in the East Nuke, and some of them tend to be over mainly in the St Andrews area. So that's quite a small market. So hence the reason why you see that percentage jumping up a bit more than the other ones, because there's less of them in that area. But it begins to stabilize out. So 500, 600,000, 81%, 600, 750, 62%, 69%, and 63%. 63% from 1 million to 2 million, but that could have been one or two properties. So it just shows you where the main house selling, and this is what I've said before to most people when I go out to see them, at the 250,000 price point, and you can see right there I'm putting in downwards, is the main markets are actually selling very, very well. And why is that then? Well, that's down to affordability, because base rates have gone up, mortgage rates have gone up. Therefore, what's happening out of that is people have only got a finite amount of money to put towards their monthly payment for their mortgage. Therefore, as the rate goes up, they can't afford as much as before. So therefore, the value that they can buy now with the same available money every month has now gone down in terms of the property price. Therefore, they're not able to buy as big a property, in a nutshell, than they were before. And that's why you see 250,000 and downwards as the properties are actually selling really, really well in the market, whereas 250 as we go up to way beyond a million are all round about the 60 to 65% mark. So your likelihood is, if you come onto the market, you're 65%, 2/3 likely to sell within that 6-month period. Sometimes you might be out with that. That's what it's basically telling me if you're 250,000 and upwards. And that's what that graph shows us here. So the following can be seen, just to summarize that. The entry-level properties, this market is doing extremely well, as we can see here. I'll maybe just show it for the TikTok. See, it's going up here. This is the 96%, 99%, as in here. I'm just showing the TikTok brigade and the Instagram. So you can see that how that graph comes down. When you get to 250,000, it starts to level off right there. And you can see that right there. So it goes right down for the Instagram crew, and right along it levels off from 250,000 and onwards. So hopefully that's giving you a good insight into where the market is. So we've kind of got a two-tier market in terms of properties in the Fife area. And you'll probably find there's a two-tier market as well right across the whole of the UK, and especially across Scotland as well. So if you drill down into your regions and you get these key data and key information, you'll see there's up to a certain price point selling extremely well, and then all of a sudden it just drops like a stone and it's leveled off for the rest of the time. So hopefully that's giving you good insight into the dual markets that are going on right now. So that from especially in the range of 100 to 150,000, selling quite well in Fife. Mid-range properties as expected. Things are a little more challenging in this price range. It looks more affected by the current higher mortgage rates in the mid-market, with the best price range being from 200 to 250,000. If that's where your properties are, it's going to sell quite well, more than likely. Most people just go for affordability of a property and they start to compromise on what they can buy based on what's on the market at that point in time. There's still an extreme restriction in the Fife property market overall because there's only about 850 to 900 houses on the market available in Fife right now. Now, considering the fact that there's 170,000 households in Fife overall, that proportion is ultimately just, I'm doing a quick calculation, that proportion is 0.6% of the housing market in Fife up for sale. No danger there then of any property crashes if anything floods on. The last credit crunch crash was caused because 6% of the UK housing stock went onto the market at the same time. In Fife, there's only 0.6% of stock of the houses in Fife on the market at this point in time. So that literally has to go up. That literally has to go up by 10 times, that figure. So in order for there to be any sort of implications about what happened in the credit crunch, they would need to dump at least about 4,000 or 5,000 houses in the Fife market on at the same time for it to affect anything in terms of price point. And even then, we'll kind of go back 20% if that ever did happen. And prices have actually gone up in the last 3 years in Fife by 30%. Interestingly enough, the Halifax announced today, first time in 11 years, the house prices have gone down so much, and all the panic, or 15 years or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, so how much has it gone down? 2.6%. Really? And you're doing that headline as a panic stations thing. And yet it's only 2.6% in the last year that house prices have gone down. House prices in the last 3 years have gone up 30% in Fife. And you're quibbling in Halifax about 2.6%. And the news is creating a henny penny incident. If anybody knows what henny penny is, oh, the world's falling in, the sky's falling in, and saying that every single time. And if you say it enough, at some point in time, if you say the sky's falling in, it's, well, obviously the sky wouldn't fall in, but at some point in time, whatever it is you're saying is going to happen. It's only a matter of time if you keep saying it, more than likely. Hence the reason why you get all these doom mongers going out there, peddling all their fake news and saying how catastrophic everything's going to be and how everything's going to collapse. And it's like the last one I remember was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was talking about this housing collapse 4 years ago. At some point, he might be right. So you've got to be careful of the facts that are available, and you've got to look at them. And if you look at this clear right in front of us now, the Fife property market in the first 6 months, everything from up to 250,000 selling very, very well, and everything beyond is quite stabilised, and it will take a wee bit longer to sell as the price band goes up because of mortgage rates increasing. There's other factors actually influencing this. I'll take this off the screen. There's other factors actually influencing this overall in the property market. The overall state of the property market greatly influences the saleability of properties across the price ranges in Fife. And last week's show, I discussed whether Fife was a buyer's or seller's market or a balanced market. Now, during a seller's market, for example, where demand outweighs supply, all properties sell quickly regardless of their price range. In contrast, in a buyer's market, where supply exceeds demand, property prices will actually take longer to sell, especially at the higher price ranges. For example, nationally, any property up to 200,000, which is considered the lower quartile of properties, in other words, the bottom 25% of properties by value, have had a saleability rate of 75% in 2023. Yet last year, it was 91%. I'll say that again. The bottom 25% of properties in the UK for this year so far is 75% of 2023. And last year, it was at 91%. That's a huge difference. So it shows you well, let's look at the top end, for example. So let's just tune in on the top end first, and we'll come back to that. So at the top end of the market nationally, last year, 51.9% of properties over £1 million marketed throughout the year had a sale agreed on them. And for 2023, it's actually 35.1%. So that's dropped like a stone as well. So what's going to influence that? Well, things like, let's talk about location, for example. So location is definitely the place to be. The location of a property plays a crucial role in its saleability and desirability of neighbourhoods, and housing estate developments is probably key and fundamental in that process. And Fife has excellent amenities overall, in proximity to outstanding primary schools, for example, transportation and shops often attract more buyers. Regardless of the price range, that's key here. Buyers are willing to pay a premium for properties situated in prime locations. Now, we can see that straight away when we look at St Andrews. You know, it is one of the top universities, if not the top university town in actual the UK, and probably one of the top 10 in the world. And that's why St Andrews commands a higher price, because it's location. I can take a 2-bedroom ex-local authority flat in St Andrews at 250,000 or 260,000. That's what they were selling for. And I can take that to Leven or take it to Glenrothes. Leven's typically got the same type of properties, and because they were built at the same time. I can take the same property to Leven, which is 20 minutes down the road, 16 miles away, and yet it would be 75,000. That's a huge difference. So you see how the location is not, the property is exactly the same, but the location in Leven from 75,000 to St Andrews, 260,000, is 4 times the price of Leven. And it's only 20 minutes away, and it's 16 miles apart. So it shows you how important location is. And that's why everybody talks about all the time is location. Exactly, yeah. Pablo has actually said, and yet you can buy a 2-bedroom flat in Alloa for £45,000. Compare like with like though, Pablo. You've got to understand that it has to be an ex-local authority property, exactly like the same styles of, I'm comparing apples and apples. For example, what I've got in St Andrews that I'm comparing at 260,000 is equivalent exactly to what I've got in Leven, which is 75,000. Alloa's got a lot to go then, and it's got a huge attraction for the fact that it will probably be advantageous for buy-to-let landlords to invest in the Alloa area, especially if you get a 2-bedroom flat for 45,000, because the rental yield might be actually quite high, and that could end up sustaining that bottom end of the market in the Alloa area, for example, or any other area right throughout Britain or Scotland, because that then allows the people in these properties actually to upgrade to the mid-market, to upgrade to the upper market as well from the mid-market. So you have a natural cycle you want to keep quite healthy within the housing market. There's no surprise at the thing that actually bailed out most recessions in terms of housing and stuff like that tends to be the investors, because they come in and start buying at the bottom end. That allows people to move, because people, remember, move for circumstances. You don't move just for the sake of moving. You move because you need a bigger house, because you've got a new member of your family coming along, or you're maybe moving in together as a couple and buying buying your next house because you've maybe met each other and you've both been divorced and you're now getting one house together because you've got 2 houses separately, so you're selling that. So that tends to be, or people are actually downsizing because they're maybe their children are maybe away to university now, or they've maybe got their own houses, so they're needing to downsize because the garden's too big, the stairs are a little less manageable than before. And that's why it makes a fundamental difference about why people move, and people will move for circumstances. They won't move necessarily for money, but there is one occasion that they could move for money, as they want to downsize significantly in order to release a huge amount of equity that's in the property because they've got no mortgage anymore, and it allows them then to have better choices and most possibly have that new car, go on that holiday, and retire maybe a bit earlier than they expected to. Or maybe instead of having a full-time job, have a part-time job. So that's why some people would actually look at it as a financial position to sell their house in that occasion. Property condition and features are actually a main thing as well, and there's a significant impact on the saleability of a property. Well maintained, 10 out of 10 properties will, with attractive features, modern amenities, and updated bathrooms and kitchens, are more likely to attract potential buyers across all the price ranges. If you've got a property that's mint condition, ready to move in, it attracts a higher number of people because it's all about how much I can get on the mortgage. That's what it comes down to. But if you've got a property that needs a lot of work on it, it attracts a lot of people who have more money to put towards improvements because they won't get that included in the mortgage. So it has to come out of their own pocket or out of an existing resale property they've actually sold, which maybe had a huge amount of equity built up in it. So updated bathrooms, kitchens are more likely to attract potential buyers across all the price ranges. Now, would it also surprise you that properties that need absolute gutting, in other words, well, 1 or 2 out of 10 properties, also attract many buyers, just as many buyers, as they often wish to put their mark on it. So while there's a middle ground that people are put off by, oh, I need to probably do it as I go, and it might cost me a bit more money than I expect. The opposite ends of the spectrums potentially have bigger audiences because they appeal to different demographics. And what I mean by that is the ones that the needs are absolute full refurb, and we're going to get it for a good price, and we're going to add significant value, is a real attraction to a lot of people because they can see how they can leverage that and make more money and gain more money in the added value they put into the property with their own skills and resources. In other words, using their own time rather than paying somebody to do it. And then that adds into the significant value of the property, which allows them to then take that existing property and actually upgrade to another one with no capital gains because it's their principal private residence. You don't pay capital gains on that at all. So some people, which is 1 in 10, 2 in 10, actually use it as a leverage tool in order to get themselves up the property ladder a lot quicker to a bigger, higher quality house and get that to pay for it. It's trading up. That's what it's used as. That's what really the name is. It's called trade up. It's not just a simple house sale. It's a trade up. It's adding value significantly in each step of the process in order to lock up a huge amount of equity in that final property they move into. And then potentially, maybe in a few years' time, they downsize completely, release a whole load of cash, and then they do it all again and make even more money. So there's a good strategy there for people that want to retire early and want to do it like that. Whereas investors like myself, we invest our capital in housing in order to provide someone else a tenant with a house, and therefore our money is made on the appreciation of the property, not necessarily the day-to-day income it's generated from the rent received, because that tends to go back in quite a bit to the improvements and the upgrades of the properties over the year and the managing of the property. It doesn't go to pay the mortgage, by the way. Like a lot of people actually think they're paying the landlord's mortgage. They're not, because most landlords have interest-only mortgages. Therefore, you're only paying the finance charges on the bank, and yet you've not got the liability as a tenant of actually being the mortgage holder, which is a bit of a burden. So the landlord ends up being the mortgage holder, and all you're doing is paying the finance charges to the bank. So you're not paying down their debt. That's what happens with an interest-only mortgage. So would it surprise you that the needs absolute gutting, as I said? Interestingly, properties requiring some moderate renovations or lacking desirable features, those in the mid-range, the 4 or 5 or 6 out of 10, may experience slower sales or necessity actually price adjustments and price realignments. In other words, you have to, and it's because there's more properties like that. Therefore, you're competing against more people to sell your property. Therefore, when there's a lot of similar properties on the market, you then have to decide how motivated you are to sell, and do you want to exit before someone else because that person, if you're in the same price point as them or as the other house, might go for that one before they go for your one. So that's quite an important thing to think about. So let me talk about targeting marketing and pricing, for example. Well, effective marketing strategies tailored to each price range can enhance the saleabilities of the properties. Accurate pricing is crucial to attract potential buyers and generate interest. Overpricing will definitely deter buyers, while underpricing may lead to missed opportunities to actually maximize your returns. A skilled Fife estate agent, or any skilled estate agent like ourselves, for example, there's no surprise we've got a good track record in this. #1 estate agent in Britain, in Scotland, sorry, for the 3rd year running, possibly the 4th year this year, but we'll see. These estate agents can provide valuable insights into pricing strategies and develop marketing campaigns to target specific buyer segments. Remember what I said when I came back to our audiences? London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Dundee, Perth. All the big cities, all the people with a lot more money, a lot more buying power than normally anybody local. But local markets caught by Rightmove, Prime Location and Zoopla. And that's why we use traditional routes to market, emerging routes to market, and newer routes and social media channels. So we've talked about targeted marketing and pricing. We've talked about property condition and features. We've talked about location, how important that is overall. So my final thoughts on the saleability of any properties in Fife, for example. Well, understanding the dynamics of selling properties across different price ranges is essential for buyers and sellers in the property market itself. Whether you're contemplating a move or planning to stay put until late this year, or even in 2024, it is worth assessing the saleability of your home right now. That's the important thing. Everything comes down to planning, and planning. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's as simple as that. Don't leave things to the last minute. If you're thinking about selling this towards the end of this year, in fact, you'll have to start to sell now to be in before Christmas. That's where we are right now. Because look at it this way. If it takes about 3 months for conveyancing, and it's going to take at least sometimes, on average, it's a good couple of months to sell right now at any price point. Now, some properties can go, and we have had that. We had one recently last week, sold from social media, never even got on a website, and it sold. Then we had another one that sold within a couple of days. But we had other ones that sold in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then other ones that sold in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So the balance is it takes a couple of months on average to sell a property. So you plan with that strategy just now, and everything else is a bonus that happens either side of that. So if it takes a couple of months and it takes 3 months to get over the line in terms of conveyancing, you're 5 months away. So if we're in July right now, July to August, to September, to October, to November, to December, we're at Christmas to complete. Now, some people could do that a lot quicker, but it's subject to things like if you've got quite a lot of transactions with a solicitor. This is why it's a good point to choose a really good solicitor. If you've got quite a lot of transactions with an existing solicitor, then it's difficult for them to juggle everything. So they're trying to deal with everything, and it's literally the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the most oil. So it's like, well, if you've gone on about it that much, you go from the bottom of the pile to the top of the pile, and you're dealt with next. That's where the solicitors are right now sometimes. And it's similar to things like the banks. You can all see the banks downsizing, they're closing branches, they're looking to squeeze more profitability out. They're actually shedding jobs now and again to make things more efficient. But what they're really doing is they're trying to maximize the profits for a shareholder return. They're also trying to maximize the profits just in case they need to weather a storm, which I don't think, they've not predicted anything like that. So let's just park that to the side. But that's what they do. So the mortgage companies themselves take quite a long time to process a mortgage. So that could be at least 3 or 4 months. But remember, they can only process the mortgage and grant the mortgage application once you've got somewhere to buy. And you can only have somewhere to buy is once you've actually sold and got an offer on your house. That's more or less what happens. Because there's no way that a solicitor would agree to more or less go forward with no conditions on an offer on your behalf if you've still got a house to sell or you've still got a mortgage arranged. They will put that as a condition, and that will leave your property as sold or under offer, which means there's still a lot of fine detail to be looked through in order to get that over the line. So that's why potentially, if you want to move before Christmas and get settled before Christmas, you need to think about doing something now. Equally, as every month passes, that then pushes you in the timeline into next year. Remember, this is a critical path. If everybody understands what critical path analysis is, I did it in school and I did it in mathematics and that. And it means, and it's planning, it's about you find out all the critical points that have to happen before something else can happen in that pathway. And then once you work out all the critical points, that has to happen, for that to happen, for that to happen, for that to happen, for that to happen, and for that to happen. Once you analyze all that and get all that finite out, all that in a line, you'll then work out what the timeline of that is. In other words, when you start on that first thing you need to do to the end point where that end point is you need to be, that is your critical path. And that's the minimum amount of time it will take you to get this transaction done. That's a critical path analysis, which means, and it always happens, if a spanner gets thrown in the works in some shape or form, because there's a lot of things out of your control at that point in time in the sale process, we try to minimize that as much as possible by following up with the solicitors and keeping them on track. Even though we're not meant to, we still do it because we want to try and keep that pathway, that critical path on track itself, to make sure you hit the entry data you need and you get what you want out of it as well. So that's why it's so important, I suppose, to go with the right estate agent when it has a track record. It's not necessarily, and I used to hear it all the time. This is what I used to hear all the time. Of course, so-and-so sells a lot more properties than you. Okay. Anybody can sell a lot more properties if they're selling them really cheap. or if they're busting them in and busting them out and just as quick as we can. That doesn't mean to say that you're going to get the best price at the end for your property, which could mean 2,000 or 3,000, maybe 5,000 more than what another agent could get. And that's all down to a digital marketing strategy, and that's all down to good negotiation. So you pick good negotiators, but you also pick someone with a good track record in terms of marketing strategy. It's someone who can hit the target market that you think your property is going to be most appealing to. That's the key here. So as the Fife property market, to finalise this, continues to evolve, it's always beneficial to stay informed about the value of your property itself. Therefore, I would encourage all homeowners in the Fife area, even right across Scotland and right across the UK as well, to contact an estate agency to comprehensively evaluate their home saleability. Because again, an estate agent might turn up on your doorstep at the last minute because you've called them out at the last minute and not planned about this at all and no idea where you are and actually turn around to you and say to you, oh, the kitchen's no great, or the bathroom's no great, or I think you should maybe do that, or really, actually, you should maybe paint the outside of the house. You should maybe give the windows a wee bit of refurb, rub all that flaky paint down and paint it again. That is going to take time, which eats into your critical path. See how that happens? That's why it's important to do it now. So we're ready to help you with that expert guidance and assist you in marketing informed decisions for your property. So, by all means, don't hesitate to give us a call. And hopefully that's given you a really good insight into where the Fife property market is and how the two-tier system is operating right now in terms of everything up to 100, 250,000 is actually selling extremely well. And everything beyond that is quite stable, but it's only about 66% of these 60 to 65, 66% is actually selling within a 6-month period. So it does take a bit longer. When you get to the top end of the market as well, you need to maybe think about a different pricing strategy, especially being in the market for that long. Because remember, if you've been in the market and you've been in the market for 6 months, for example, and yeah, the buyer will come along at some point in time. But remember, base rates and mortgage rates have been moving up since then. So therefore, as the people 6 months ago were actually looking at your property and thinking, yeah, that's very affordable, a lot of them are now going, that's actually not affordable to me anymore, because in order for me to get finance for that, it's going to cost a lot more. Therefore, the price of my end result, my price that I can afford now, is going to have to come down in my property. And that's what makes a fundamental difference. And if you understand that, yes, you will be able to move on and happy days, move on to your next house. You've got to remember as well, as yours realigns, someone else's price is probably realigning to the similar price point as well. We talk about this all the time. about how a property market crash, if a property market crash came along tomorrow and your price of your property dropped by 10% and you're moving to another property in the same area, well, guess what? You're buying the next property is down by 10% as well. So the differential is nothing in terms of what it is, because in the last 3 years in Fife, the price of property has gone up 30%. So essentially, if property even dropped in Fife, which it hasn't so far, Halifax is just saying, according to their figures, property prices have dropped by, in June, only 0.1%, which is neither here nor there. If that's the case, then in Fife itself, it's not really dropped at all. But if it dropped by 10% and we've gone up 30% in the last 3 years, then we're only back at last year's prices. I'll say that again. If it dropped by 10%, we'd only be back at last year's prices, because that's where they were before the prices all went up. And how many people are actually moving within a year of actually buying their first house or their second house or their third house? Very, very few, if any. Usually because they've got to sell because of their circumstances have changed dramatically. But that's very, very rare that happens. So mostly, market's very stable, market's very buoyant at the right price points, but be realistic about the top end of the price points and actually maybe reconsider realigning that price in order to get somebody through the door to potentially push them back up. Until next time, guys, I'm Jim Parker for Fife Properties TV. Bye-bye for now.